Welcome to episode 124 of the Daniel Yoris podcast with today's guest, Aram Grigorian. Let's go. Welcome back to the podcast, everybody. Joined here today by Aram Grigorian. Aram, thanks for being here, man. Appreciate you.
Thanks for making me sit in silence for 10 seconds like a huge weirdo.
Isn't it so weird? Man, every single time I do that, and I've talked about it a couple times, it's just like capturing some background noise, cleans up the audio on the back end and all that stuff, but like, see how I just paused there for like a second and a half? Like that was weird, and imagine 10 seconds.
That's why whenever I used to go on first dates, I would sit there awkwardly for the first 10 seconds of the date and just stare at her. Just lock eyes.
What was the success rate of that?
0%.
Interesting.
Actually, no, that's not true. 1% because one of them was real weird. She was like, I'm into this.
I don't know if you were ever taught this in like sales of training and stuff like that, but it was like when you lay your whole spiel, this is what we do, this is what we offer, this is how I can help you, all the stuff.
First to speak loses.
Lay the price on them, and first to speak loses. I was always also taught the same thing, and it was very much true. It's one of those weird kind of like, I don't know if it's a power dynamic or like a confidence type of thing where it's like the silence is awkward. So the first to break it is like the lower or the beta or I don't know, that's not even the right word, but it's like somehow you're losing the exchange.
It comes down to like, if you like, let's say like you end the conversation with your price. Like, hey, wanted to get excited about talking to you about coaching, blah, 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 blah. This is what you're going to get, blah, blah, and it's $500 a month. If you follow up with, well, and you're having to explain why that $500 is valuable. Right. As opposed to you've just explained it. Then you've given a price to attach to that explanation. So let the person on the other end decide whether they think that's valuable or not. That's not your, because if you start speaking again, you're trying to build them a watch. Just tell them what time it is. Right.
You should have already built up the value of that thing by the time you laid the price on them. Actually, so there's a couple guys who I hired to do clips for the podcast. I'm sure nice. Maybe people have seen them, and they look all. Personally, I think they're so fucking annoying because they're like, there's flashing stuff everywhere, text. Whatever,
I think they look great. I think I'm fucking really jealous that you have that because I don't have it.
I'll hook you up with them if you want. But the other day I was talking to them and they're like, things with the business are like this, and he's kind of like, looking away on the camera and like humming and hawing, and I'm like, I know where he's going with this. So we're operating at a little bit of a loss and things are a little bit tight. And I said, hey, if you're going to increase the prices, just fucking do it, man. Like, I'm okay with it. You guys do good work. I know things are tough, but the more you hum and haw, the less confidence I have in you about this. So like, just fucking lay it on me and let's move on. It's just a couple bucks. You're not asking me to, sacrifice my life for you.
Right. Yeah. It's not that big of a deal. And I think that's the reality of anything that costs something is if you say cost as opposed to value, you immediately put a negative connotation to something. Like our services are valuable. They cost X, but what is the alternative opportunity cost of not having a coach?
Right.
Banging your head against the wall, potentially opening yourself up to chronic illness that you're not even aware of, not having the accountability, not having the knowledge base, not having the skill set, not having the support. So that's the cost of not coaching as opposed to the value that you're going to derive from the $300 or $500 or $700 or whatever else people charge that you're going to be paying a month. So I don't think of it as cost. Like it's more expensive to not have a coach, and it's more expensive to go and buy the frivolous shit that you buy on a daily basis that you have no idea of that you like. You guys have Target in Canada? You do, right?
Yeah.
How much money do people spend at Target when they walk in for like a pair of socks? They leave with like a $300 cart of shit that they don't even know they had now. Oh, this lampshade I needed. No. And then all this other crap that you pick up. And then it's like, yeah, I don't know. Like $275 a month for monthly coaching is just too expensive for me right now. Is it?
Yeah. Like,
let's really audit your expenses on a monthly basis, and let's find where all those little nooks and crannies are falling through on, because I promise you have $275 a month to spend on coaching. Right. Like, that's relatively inexpensive if you think about what you're getting for it.
And to your point, the other side of it is like, you're gonna spend $275 or save $275 to be unhealthy. So you're paying that to not reach your goals and then to continue to complain about being overweight, in pain, not happy with your body, et cetera, et cetera. So it's like the financial aspect of this is almost the least of one's concerns, right? And so But that's a whole. I mean, the price thing is a whole. That's a whole other other thing. I think another thing that we were kind of discussing just previous to hitting record was about the autonomy and going back to like the silence as part of sales is also when you're telling someone or someone is describing their diet is like a perfect example of this. And it's like they describe everything that they're doing, and then
I eat so well, and then you either just be silent or like, what do you think we should do about this? And then you let that silence, you let them sit in it, because then their brain is cranking, and then usually they're going to come up to like, yeah, I probably shouldn't have 7 cookies every night. Like, that's probably a good place to start. I'm like, yeah, I would agree with that one. The more I've coached, the more I realize I don't need to talk. Like I leave my talking for the podcast episodes that I do because I end up having the privilege of doing a lot of them. So I'm doing at least 1 or 2 a week, that's where I get all my shit out. But I don't talk that much anymore on client calls. I don't talk that much on my Zoom calls with my clients because I have a group Zoom call. I have a group package where I have people in a group. They have their own Zoom call every other week. And then I have a weekly Zoom with every client of mine, in which we're doing some type of an educational series. Like yesterday was the exercise swaps when machines are busy at the gym. And I opened it up and I started talking, and there was like 7 people in it out of 70 people that I work with, by the way. So only 7 people showed up. So that means that the other 64 don't need my help anymore. And I don't care if my clients listen to this, because fuck you if you're going to show up on a Zoom call and you're still complaining about not getting results, show up on Zoom calls. And I'm sitting there and I'm like, guys, if you have any questions on specific exercises, type them in the chat and I'll get to them one by one. Crickets for like 2 minutes. It was like this awkward. I'm just literally sitting here texting clients back, looking at my Instagram, and nothing is happening. Like, oh, cool. So you guys know everything you need to know about what happens in the gym when you need a swap, right? All right, cool. So I can just end the Zoom call, and all of a sudden, brrr, like down the line, like 4 people. I'm like, guys, you're paying me money for a service. I'm over delivering on a weekly fucking basis. If you don't take advantage of this shit and then you ask me stupid questions throughout the week because you were too chicken shit to do it on a Zoom call, you're not taking advantage of the coaching. So at some point, be an adult. It's okay. You're not in front of a classroom. You're sitting behind a screen. This is the safest you'll ever be. So take this opportunity now, because I'm offering you a free, I almost want to say free because it essentially is free, because it's not something I need to be doing. It's just another value add. But where else is a coach going to give you 4 hours a month of education?
Yeah.
And then you're still lost. Like I do a quiz once a month with people, and the results are astonishingly horrible. I'm like, with some people that have even been with me for like 8 months, I'm like, how the fuck do you not know how many calories are in a gram of carbs? I've said this incessantly on a weekly basis. It's just because people just don't fucking care. It's just not a priority. It just doesn't matter enough. Like when I started all this stuff, whether it was training, nutrition, as a 15-year-old kid, I was buying every muscle and fitness magazine. I was buying Arnold's Encyclopedia. I was just trying to absorb as much information as possible. And granted, you could say, well, you were 15, you had plenty of time. I know people that are in their 40s and 50s who spend every week on the couch at night after work because they're so tired from their day. They're rewatching shows that they've seen 16 times. I mean, I'm guilty of it. I've seen The Sopranos 8 times, but I love The Sopranos and I make time for it. I don't care, but I'm also not complaining about not getting results. So if you could watch Game of Thrones 3 times over, which is 8 fucking seasons, you don't have enough time. Like, and I send people other Instagram accounts too. I'm like, check out this one. It's got great mobility tips. Check out this one. It's got great training tips. People are posting valuable content every day, and all you're doing is watching monkeys fall out of trees. And they're like, I don't understand. I don't know how to eat well. I don't know how to train. Like, the amount of free resources that people are giving away is astonishing to me at this point. Like, you can get an entire, can you imagine if you and I had Instagram when we were training to be trainers?
Oh, it would have been so different. All of the silly stuff that I did that I don't like. In a way, I don't regret that I did it because I didn't know better and I learned from it. And I did stuff that, like, you know, it wasn't maybe the best way to go about things, but like I certainly wouldn't do it that way now. But if I just had Instagram, and listen, I'm not that old. Instagram was kind of coming up, but it was just mostly dumb shit on Instagram. Like no one was actually using it like intelligently or for business really in the early days. I would have just done stuff so much like, yeah, that's obviously a better way to do it than whatever the fuck I'm doing. Like I did the same workout, which on one hand is a good thing, but I think we did it for 8 months in a row. And there was
with no consideration of progressing.
With
variables.
No consideration of progressing. All I cared about was like, I'm really trying to get to dumbbell bench press the 100-pound dumbbells. That was the only thing that I cared about. And there was like 2 months where my sternum was, you just had this sternum pain like constantly. And I was like, well, those hundreds are not going to lift themselves. So if I don't do the 85s this week, I'm never going to get there. And that was the only thing that I cared about, and never anything else. And if I just had someone being like, hey, maybe try this variation, maybe take a deload week, maybe do this, maybe that, it's like, oh yeah, obviously I should probably do that. That would be a good thing to do, right?
Maybe have a carb every once in a while.
Yeah, exactly. But I think a big portion of this is, you know, we can hire whoever we want. We can throw money at the problem as much as we want, buy all the supplements, buy all the equipment, the fancy gym membership, the Lululemon clothes, whatever you want. You still have to take ownership over what you're doing, and that also means the information that you're intaking into your brain and retaining into your brain. Because myself or yourself or we can't be there in the gym holding your hand every single second of the day. We can do that with some of our in-person clients and whatnot in the gym, but we can't do that outside of the gym. I can only tell you, not to eat those 7 cookies so many times before it's like, listen, I've run out of ways to say this. You either stop doing it or stop telling me about it and stop complaining about it.
The way that I approach that conversation is I just make sure I ask the question of what do you expect when you exhibit that type of behavior? Because I really want to understand, right? Like, it's not enough. It's enough. I think most people, as long if they're consuming your content, my content, other people's great content out there, they should have the basic awareness and knowledge base already. They've been told protein's important. They've been told walking is great. They've been told lifting weights is important. So outside of that, it just becomes a daily moderation and management issue. So if you're going to choose to eat certain things, like last week when I was moving to my new apartment, nutrition and training were not a priority. They just weren't. So I told my coach early on in the week, hey man, Wednesday through Sunday of this week is going to be a shit show. I'm not prioritizing food. I'm not prioritizing preparation. I'm not prioritizing training. I'm going to do the best I can with what little bit of bandwidth I have. Now, cop out. Let's be very honest. Like, could I have spent 30 minutes in between moving to throw beef in a pan? Absolutely, I could have, but I didn't give a fuck enough to do that. That's the important part, is I know that I didn't care enough to do it. Therefore, I don't get to expect to have a great week of feeling good. What do our clients do? I had 2 good days, 4 days that were chaos and untracked that I didn't consider anything. But I still expect to feel as good as I did for those 2 first days. That's where it's unrealistic, and that's where I have to constantly have that conversation of like, hey, man, or lady, or whatever you are, or whatever you identify with these days. You can't expect to feel good when you don't behave in a way that's going to make you feel good. If you drink a lot, expect to be hungover. If you sleep like shit, expect to feel like shit. If you eat like shit, expect to feel like shit. It's that simple, but then people have this idea of, well, if I had a couple good days sprinkled in with a couple of bad days, I should net feel good. Unfortunately, it doesn't work that way. The physiology is sensitive enough to give you the signal it needs to give you to tell you, don't do that because then you're going to be bloated and distended and tired and have shit cognitive function. It's all built in. The system is wired for us to be negatively reinforced. Same reason why you zap a dog when it starts barking at something stupid.
Yeah, unfortunately, we don't do a good job. We're not really set up physiologically to bank this stuff. One night of good sleep doesn't mean you can just fuck off for the next 3-4 days. Like it's got to be constant. And is that unfortunate? Like maybe to some, but that's like the way that we live. Look at other animals. Like they don't, there's one thing about banking sleep. I think it was Dr. Matthew Walker said this somewhere, and he's like, why don't we bank sleep? And he said, because humans, by my account, are the only animals dumb enough to sacrifice sleep for other stuff. It's pretty spot on. I
mean, the amount of self-destructive behavior that we have as humans is astonishing to me. And they've actually done this where they've put like a bowl of water and a bowl of Pepsi on the ground and had dogs and cats see which direction they went in, and they picked the water almost every time. I'd be on my hands and knees in front of the Pepsi because that's what we do. We love vices because vices are that red button that we're not supposed to push, whether it's drugs or alcohol or sex or cookies or cupcakes or TV, whatever it is that's going to numb our brain to the reality of the world, we're going to do it. And I'm guilty of it, but I'm very careful with my vices. The more I age and the older I get, the more experience I have of not feeling well. Like I don't want to keep touching the hot stove over and over and over again, expecting a different result. I know it's going to be hot every single time. Sometimes I'm willing to take the burn, right? I eat Five Guys. I expect to feel like shit, but I enjoy it in the moment. I don't expect to feel good the next day. You know, I do a half a bag of cocaine and a bunch of beer or vodka on a Saturday night. I expect to be hungover and feel like shit on Sunday. And there's no illusions with me anymore. So I know now if I'm going to choose to partake in a vice, whatever that vice may be, cookies, cupcakes, whatever else, I know that there's a cost to pay for that. And if I'm okay with that cost, I also have to be okay with the lack of progress. And that's fine. But most people don't think that way. Most people think I can just live with consequences not being present.
100% agreed with that entire statement. And I think that is one of the biggest misconceptions that I get personally, and I think most trainers get with the, oh, so you just never eat pizza because you're a trainer kind of thing. It's like, no, I do all that stuff too. I just do it with my eyes open, and I don't complain that I feel bad afterwards. I do it intentionally. When I have the pizza, I have the whatever junk stuff, I know that I'm not going to feel great, perform great, and just be my best self after that. And I make that sacrifice knowingly and willingly for that period of time, for that enjoyment, for that evening, whatever it is. But then I'm also right back on track afterwards. It's not like, oh, well, I didn't feel great today, so I'm just going to like, you know, continue this perpetually, right? It's done. It happened tonight. And then tomorrow, like I'm doing the things that I got to do to recover because I'm not surprised by the outcome, right? The worst thing is when you are, or when like an emergency is when the outcomes don't match what you did. So if I ate everything that I thought was like really healthy, chicken, broccoli, you know, whatever, that was like, you know, perfect with my food, and then the next morning I wake up feeling horrible, then, you know, something's wrong there. That's when it's like you go to the doctor, like something maybe happened, right? But if I eat pizza and junk food and I feel exactly the way that I should feel after eating that, then why would I be surprised at anything different? Like that's the part that's really I think hard to understand for most people. I don't think it's hard to understand, but you know, obviously we're biased and this is what we do. But just through other people's experiences, like it's hard to wrap one's head around this for some reason.
I just think it's our responsibility to keep being that reminder. Yeah. You know, unfortunately, people will receive that information in due time, whether it's after the 90th time we've posted about it or talked about it, or whether it's after the first. It doesn't really matter. Right. To me, the speed is irrelevant. I just want to make sure that I'm going to keep, like, that's why I wake up every single day and like I have all my posts created weeks in advance. And basically all my posts come from frustrations of myself that I see with people, clients, people on Instagram, whatever, the world. And that's where all my content comes from. It's probably very similar to where you're getting your content from. Mm-hmm. And my responsibility is I have to show up every day on Instagram as the thought leader and the authority figure to remind you of the shit that you know you already should be doing or not doing. And why would I ever stop that message? And why would I not just repackage that same message over and over again in different ways until you finally get it? And for some people, I get DMs all the time of like, hey man, your message really resonates with me. I started following you 3 years ago and I lost 40 pounds. Don't even know this person. I've never worked with that person. But because I kept showing up every single day, holy shit, I helped somebody indirectly. Can you imagine if you showed up for yourself every single day and how much better you'd feel a year from now? Because I didn't expect my Instagram account to take off and have as many followers as I do and have the ability to be able to connect to as many people as I do now. But I do because I never stop. It wasn't like, oh, well, one post gets 1,000 likes and one post gets 200 likes, so I should just stop posting. Because now they're all not all of them are getting 1,000 likes. Right. Okay. So one day you show up for yourself and it doesn't feel that great. So what do? You just quit? No, you just keep showing up and then the next day and the next day and the next day. And then in total, over some period of time, there's going to be an accumulated positive effect.
This brings me to another thing that I wanted to talk to you about is that you and I both have a similar, obviously different, but similar style of messaging. I think we're both very honest, blunt, and maybe a little bit in your face at times. And I don't think that it's like an on purpose. This is trying to be like an on brand type of thing. This is just like, this is how I am. That's how you are. That's how we speak. We're not trying to like put on this facade of to be someone that we're not online or whatever. And so some people will hear, you know, the way that we're speaking and our message and be like, no, fuck those guys. Like they're mean. They're too truthful, they're too, whatever, I don't like it. And that's okay, because we're not saying anything that's revolutionary. You and I don't have some secret knowledge that has never been said, right? If I'm going to say the same thing 90 times, then it's been said online 9 million times already before me. So in theory, there's no reason for me to say anything ever. But for whatever reason, that message hasn't got through to those people. And so maybe the way that I say it on, Tuesday, July 27th or whatever, and the way that you say the same thing on August 3rd is going to hit someone. And that's the thing that matters. So it's like, just keep showing up, and different people are going to receive the different message. But what I wanted to ask you about was, what is some of the response? Like, do you get a lot of negative people saying like, hey man, like, tone it down? Do you get that?
Way overwhelmingly more positive than negative. For every 100 comments that I get, maybe one of them is like, whatever, you triggered some snowflake fucking nonsense. Exactly. It's just, it says more about how they feel about themselves than what I said. A good example of that is I was on Beth Farraco's podcast a month ago, and I got pretty heated and aggressive with how I you know me, I mean, I swear purely out of passion because it's part of my vocabulary. I don't swear to try to like be cool or be like a street thug or whatever. I just, I swear because it's part of my vocabulary. I'm passionate about what I speak about, and fucks just kind of get in the way. And I had talked about how when you're 40 or 50% body fat, like the last thing you need to be worried about is aesthetics. Like at that point you have a health problem and you need to fucking deal with it. So like stop talking about like fitting into like clothes and bikinis and all this other shit. Like just, you have to get your shit together so you don't die sooner than you should. And then a woman reached out to me who was obviously not even following me. She was following Beth or had heard it on Beth's show, and just rattled off this 3-paragraph message about how like she had all these health problems and how she was in a car accident and that her 2 sisters died of cancer and she was a caretaker and she's a mother of 4 and blah, 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 blah. And I'm like, listen, how you perceive what I said is your responsibility, not mine. If I was to troll every podcast and every Instagram account for the rest of my days and find reasons to get upset, I could, but I don't have the time for that. So if you're so busy with your 4 kids and your caretaking abilities and your care for yourself, you still obviously found enough time in your day to complain to me about how I made you feel. Cool. Use that time more productively. It's not my fucking responsibility. And I'm sorry that you deal with shit. Everybody has crap on their plate. Some people's crap smells worse than others. Okay. You can find a myriad of people out there that have it worse than you do. But at the end of the day, your problems are real to you. For some fucking trust fund kid who's living in a mansion, his biggest problem might be that they don't have enough beer for the day. And they can't get through the day with all their partying because there's just not enough booze in the house. So that's their biggest problem. And for somebody else, it may be making rent so their fucking child can stay under a roof and keep warm for the wintertime. So everybody's problems are real and they're individual. And to be quite frank, I don't give a fuck about your problems. I really don't, because I have my own. But I'm trying to help you with your problems because I've dealt with my own problems and I'm constantly dealing with my own problems. And that's our individual responsibility. So how you perceive a message is 100% your responsibility. And if you're an adult who hasn't understood that yet, you need to hire a therapist or you need to listen to some self-help books or read some books to get your mind right so that a podcast doesn't trigger you to have to go and like type away to somebody. Like I've never done that in a million years.
There's 2 things that strike me as very odd about that situation. One, Beth also swears a lot and is like a very blunt person. So I would assume that people who are like listening to her content are not like, so coddled and whatever that you saying that is like, oh my God, this is like, it hurts my ears. That's number 1. Number 2 is to think that someone speaking on a podcast like us, again, I've said this before on the show, but it's like, we use the words you and stuff like that to make it seem like we are talking to an individual, a person who's listening to this in their car, in their headphones, on the walk, whatever they're doing. But we are speaking to many people at once. And so I can't say something that is going to fit your exact perfect scenario. Now, to this woman who's, a single mother, behind on rent, health issues, blah, 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 would I speak to her differently in a one-on-one scenario than I would say?
Of course you
absolutely.
would. Yeah.
And so if I'm just here saying like, you fucking definitely have time, get in the gym, no excuses, like obviously I'm not, if the message doesn't fit with your life, I'm obviously not talking to you in that thing. And I would say that same message to you just in a different way. So like that whole scenario is just beyond me. But again, it comes back to this like personal responsibility. If that message doesn't fit, obviously you still need to like take care of your health. Just because you have health issues and you don't have money and you don't have this and you don't have that, it's like, well, so what's your option? Just be healthy and be obese and then die? Like, is that what you want for your life? If so, then I mean,
cool.
Whatever, free country, do your thing. But like, presumably you're listening to a health and fitness podcast. I don't think that's what you want. So are you just going to complain or are you going to do something about it? Like, pick one.
Yeah, I mean, we can find something to bitch about every single day of the week. Everything can be hard. I mean, everything. Like, I moved to a new apartment. My rent's going to be $1,000 more a month. I could sit here and bitch about how much money that is, but I chose to get it. Right. I chose to find this place. I chose to pay that money. If my career frustrates me, I chose my career. If my relationship frustrates me, I chose my relationship. You chose everything in your life. Like nobody is, at least from what I understand, and from the people that follow me and interact with me, nobody's living in a country that doesn't allow them the ability to choose the things they want to choose. Like even when I lived in Russia, I left when I was 5, but it was a communist country. There was certain shit you couldn't do and couldn't say. That's communism. That's how some people in parts of the world still live, but not very many left, really. I mean, what is there really left? North Korea, China, a couple of parts of Africa that are still run by warlords and shit. But otherwise, like, most people are relatively free to do whatever the fuck they want to do. And they're still finding other people to blame for their problems. Yeah. And that's where I have a problem with it, because it's very easy to be a victim and it's very easy to find a scapegoat when you look for one. But instead of doing that, spend all of your available energy on finding the solution to your issues. And they're there. Usually very simple also. Another
disconnect that I've found is that people are very quick to, especially in this current online environment of, celebrating all of our differences and you're perfect the way you are and all that stuff. People are very quick to be like, hey, look at this thing that I accomplished. Look at this positive thing that I did. I did it all by myself. I'm self-made. I worked hard and I did it. And so they take full credit for the positives that happen in their life. But when something negative happens, all of a sudden, it's not your fault anymore. So either you're responsible for your life and for those positive things happening to you. If that's true, then you're also responsive for the negative things that happen to you when you're down in your luck, when you don't have money, when you're out of shape, whatever. Or you're just, flying by the seat of your pants and whichever way the wind blows, that's where you're going. And you don't have any rhyme or reason as to when things are happening good or happening bad. And that was horrible English grammar in that sentence, by the way.
You're from Canada. It's okay. You don't speak real English.
Yeah. Well, that's questionable, but we'll save that one. Yeah. So it's like either you're responsible or you're not, and you can't just take credit for the good stuff and not take credit for the bad stuff either.
I always use the gamblers analogy. If anybody that knows any gamblers, what do gamblers always love doing? Hey man, I made 10 grand last night on the Knicks. Oh yeah? How much did you lose last week on the Nuggets?
Yeah.
You don't hear about the losses.
That's right.
And that's the perfect epitome of Instagram. You see everybody's wins. You see everybody's doctored up photos. You see everybody's perfect lighting coming in on them, shining bright, lat spread, booty pose. This is what I eat in a day. Let me see what you eat in a day when you're stressed the fuck out.
Yeah.
Let me film, put the camera on the counter when you're sneak eating at night before you go to bed, before your kids are all there, while your kids are asleep, right? Like, I want to see that shit. Show me that stuff. Show me the day that you wake up and you wanted to fucking kill yourself because you were so bloated from the decisions you made the night before. Show me the days that you spent but then it can get the other way, right? Because then you see the videos of like the people crying in their cars. This is my vulnerability post.
Yeah.
While part of me wants to be like, cool, that's great. You're illuminating mental health issues. But I always have to question the person's intention for doing that. Is it self-serving? Are you doing it for the reason to show other people that it's okay to be not okay and to seek help? Or are you doing it to get attention?
Yeah.
Because this is a very easy place to get a lot of comments and interactions and positive reinforcement. So I want to give people the benefit of the doubt, always. I think people tend to be well-intentioned, in my opinion, usually. But I've also met people that aren't well-intentioned and are big pieces of shit. And it's hard because you don't know somebody personally through Instagram. You know enough about them to see what they're doing. And you want to give them the benefit of the doubt, but then also too, it can be a predatory place to prey on people's emotions.
Right. We're competing for attention, no matter what. No one's getting paid for likes and all this stuff, but there's that little dopamine hit that you get when you have a post that's like doing better than usual. It's getting more likes, getting more comments, and whatever, and it kind of like it feels good. And when you're getting that attention from something negative, something that's real that happened to you, you can always flip it to say like, yeah, well, I'm trying to draw attention to this. This is kind of like the scam artist thing. Well, it's like, well, they're going to spend their money on something, so they better spend it on me. It's like, well, yeah, I mean, that's one way to justify what you're doing, but you're still selling complete nonsense, right? So you can always justify something to like, make it seem like it's in a good light or well-intentioned or whatever. But I mean, this really just comes back to just being authentic. And being authentic doesn't mean trying to be authentic. It just means do whatever you're doing. If you're trying to make yourself seem a certain way or draw attention to a specific thing because it has a specific reason, that's no longer authentic. It's just, pull the camera out and do whatever you got to do if you got to make a thing. If you happen to cry while mid-thing, then fine. But the thing that gets me is the rants on people's stories, or even if they post it as a video and they're either crying or ranting about something and like, oh, I'm just, being so authentic, but then they got a filter on the video. And I'm like, well, which one was it? Were you just pulling the camera out and crying because that's how you felt? But then you somehow had the cognitive awareness to like go ahead and make sure that the filter was on correctly. Like this doesn't make any sense, and I don't know who's being fooled by this, but apparently they are being fooled by it.
It's just that at the end of the day, how you consume social media is also your responsibility. So if you watch this stuff and it resonates with you and it does something to promote some positive change, I'm all for it. I don't care what it is anymore. Like people are yelling about Ozempic and all this other shit. If Ozempic saves somebody's life and moves them in the right direction of health, so be it. Yeah. I mean, I'm on fucking steroids. What am I going to say to somebody who's taking a weight loss drug? Right? Like I have no business telling you that you shouldn't be taking Ozempic. Like if it understand that you can't take it forever. Like I'll be on TRT forever, but I don't need to be on steroid doses of enhancement forever because I'm doing it for a specific period of time for a specific goal.
Right.
It's being monitored. Like I can justify it a million different ways, but I don't feel the need to, but that's just the context of it. But if you don't understand something like Ozempic, or you don't understand the long-term effects of it, you don't understand what's going to happen afterwards, if you haven't addressed behavior change due to it or afterwards, then you're going to have to keep going back to these methods all the time. So it's your responsibility to understand the ramifications of every decision you make as an adult. And if you have enough cognitive awareness and ability and you don't, you're not disordered or dysfunctional in any way that prevents you from being able to think that way, you're just as capable as anybody else is. Like I know a lot of stupid people that make a lot of decent decisions because they're at least calculated and logical about it. They couldn't figure out a math problem, and they couldn't build you a house, and they couldn't put together a piece of IKEA furniture, and they couldn't back up their car into a spot, but they could figure out how to put like vegetables and meats together to get a decent plan of eating it, and they can figure out what to do in the gym because they know how to follow certain people's advice, and they know how to be responsible for it, and they don't blame anybody else for their lack of results. So I give everybody I want to empower everybody to believe that they can be capable of anything they want to be doing, but it just depends on what the priority is. So summertime, what's the priority? Enjoy your summertime, right? Like you live in a fucking cold, shitty place. Toronto's probably beautiful in the summertime. People are probably out and about. There's probably cafes and bars and restaurants and everything is hopping because nobody wants to go outside in the middle of the winter. So this is a very easy time for you to be able to let go of the strings and let Jesus take the wheel and see whatever the fuck happens. But at the end of that time, you're going to have pictures taken. You're going to see yourself and you're going to be like, oh shit, I don't look as good as I wanted to look. And I'm disappointed in myself. Well, it's probably too late to address that in the middle of the summer. You can start making better decisions up until September and October, but that's not going to change the trajectory of anything. So maybe use that fuel of the fire this year for next year. So maybe next summer you're going to look at pictures and not be as unhappy. But you can still moderate some of the things you do. Like 4th of July, Canada Day coming up. Okay, it's one day. You don't have to celebrate Canada Day starting today and then through the weekend. Just like in America, we don't have to celebrate July 4th, which is on Tuesday. And I sent out a message to all my clients today saying, July 4th is on Tuesday. Let's not start today celebrating it. Because I'm pretty sure our forefathers weren't like, hey, let's create this beautiful landscape and let's escape England and come here for religious persecution purposes. And let's start this amazing society where everybody's going to get fucked up and eat like shit for 4 days straight to celebrate it.
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure they were like, hey, let's create new opportunities and open new doors for personal progress. And I don't think personal progress comes at the price of health.
100%. There's a ton there, and thank you for transitioning this into the summertime conversation that we planned on having. The mark of a podcast host himself, because we were going down a different road there for a second. The holiday thing is interesting one, because we are not people who are saying like, hey, don't go celebrate. Like, I'll be drinking tomorrow, I'll be eating like shit tomorrow, and like I'm good with that. But like Sunday, I won't be, and then that's it. And then Monday or even Sunday, like I'm back on my program, like everything's good, and I'm not going to be again surprised the Sunday morning when I wake up like, why do I fucking feel like I got hit by a truck? Like, because I basically did, right? So it's just maybe let's give some more tactical advice. Like, how do you go about actually? Do you do anything yourself to sort of make those days better and kind of like, peel it back and choose lower calorie drinks? Like, do you do anything like that, or how do you go about doing yourself, and how do you kind of advise most people to go about those kind of holiday days?
I treat drinking days as fasting days, essentially. Like, I'm not going to work out that day. Usually I'm going to get a ton of steps. I'll drink a ton of water. I'll do a couple of Pedialyte packets that day just to kind of prehydrate. I'll eat relatively clean all day long, like very lean protein, eggs, egg white, very few eggs, mostly egg whites, vegetables, lean tuna out of a can. Maybe I'm doing some deli meats and stuff like that, and just doing fruits and veg. Because let's say I have a party coming up on July 15th. It starts at 1 and ends at 10. To give you context, they have a drug pinata.
Okay.
So at 8 o'clock at night, everybody goes into the house. It's a 3-floor house with an infinity pool overlooking the bay in San Diego. There's a DJ on every floor. It's an insane party.
That's insane.
I'm the ugliest person there. And I'm in the worst shape there, by the way. So like, it's one of those things that you only see on television. That's what this thing is. And I get super pumped up for this party every single year. The first year I came to San Diego, I got accidentally invited to it, and I showed up and I'm like, holy shit, where did I just move? I feel like I'm in a movie. And then every year I've just been looking forward to this thing. So for a day like that, like if I'm going to eat well up until about 1 o'clock, I'm going to start drinking around 12:30 or 1. I realistically won't stop drinking until probably the day after. Like, it'll be 2 in the morning most likely, because 10 o'clock turns into the after party, turns into this. So I won't eat all day after that. So I just try to choose that as a fasting day. And then I've gotten smarter about it. So now, like, I just make sure that, okay, I'm going to eat really well up until that point. I'm not going to put extra stress on my body by training that day. So maybe I'll train light, especially now with the gym back here. Maybe I'll do a couple of sets of big movements just to get my body moving, just to create some glycogen depletion, to put some glycogen back into the muscle. So I'll do something like that. And the next day is going to be as much outdoor walking time as possible, just to get my dopamine and serotonin levels back up, because booze crushes those. I'll have shit sleep, so I'm not going to really train that day. I'm going to want to try to eat well, but I know myself, and I know that the next day probably won't be great either. But if people are going, because most people are going to events and they're doing more eating than they are drinking, usually.
Mm-hmm.
So if you're going to do more eating, the easy thing to do is eat as much protein, vegetables, and fruit leading up to the event, and save yourself the carb and fat calories that you have allotted to you for those foods that you're going to enjoy the rest of the day. So essentially, try to be as low carb and low fat all day as possible, just to give yourself that caloric freedom the rest of the day. And for people that are going to be doing more eating than drinking, definitely train in the morning. 100%. Go into the gym, kick the shit out of yourself, train heavy. When I say kick the shit out of yourself, it doesn't mean go and spin on a Peloton bike for an hour and a half. It means go and train heavy and well. Because I want you to be able to tear those muscles apart, open up that glycogen storage facility. And then that way you can replenish those muscles. You're essentially, I don't like to say the word earning, but let's be honest, it kind of is.
Mm-hmm.
It's giving you that freedom a little bit, especially like, let's say your party's at 3 and you train at 1. Still kind of that anabolic window. Go and enjoy that food. It's going to be a little bit more favorable in those situations. So that's my best tactic for that.
Yeah, I agree. I think that it's important also to differentiate, like you said, between like, are you going to be drinking all day? Because not not many people are actually, animals
No, like I'm an animal.
drink all day.
I'm an animal. I drink once every 3 months, but when I do, it's everything that's ever been invented.
Right. And most people are not like that. And to each their own, do whatever you want. But so most of these are eating holidays where I think that's like, I will do the same on a holiday that's more about eating. Like for us, it's Easter or like Christmas or even Thanksgiving. It's like I'm not getting hammered at Thanksgiving dinner with my family.
I don't drink. I don't have any booze in the house.
Right.
And I don't drink at family events because I'm actually disgusted by my family because my father starts drinking at 6 and doesn't stop until the next day.
Right. So then in those days, it's like
it's not fun for me.
You're gonna just I actually train so that it ramps up my hunger so much. Like I'll do deadlifts for sure because I know that I'll get hungrier, and I want as much of that good food that I only get like that once a year meal. I want to get as much as possible. But then when I'm drinking, I'll also do it differently. Where if I'm gonna train in the morning, it might be like just like arms, just if it's a party, just kind of like a pump up workout, not like a real workout. Because I also know that if I have a real training session and then I go and drink the rest of the day, I'm going to be so destroyed, like recovery from the workout wise the next day, that it's almost not even worth it. So it'll just be the kind of like a whatever pump up workout. But then during the actual party, like this is the thing that gets me. Sometimes I'll be at a party, this guy's a cigarette in his mouth and, a plate with like pizza and chips and stuff on it. And then a drink in his hand. He goes, I'm drinking vodka soda because it's low calorie. I'm like, I don't think that's moving the needle at all here. Like just drink the thing that you want to drink. If you like vodka sodas, then by all means do that.
Sure.
But if you'd rather be drinking a beer or rather be drinking something else, then just drink that. Have fun. Like you're going to sacrifice the thing that you like because it's slightly lower calorie maybe than another drink. Like that's where I think people are getting a little ridiculous with some of the.
But here's my devil's advocate point to that.
Okay.
I go to Five Guys and I get a double burger with bacon, cheese, whatever, and usually a small fry. The small is usually because they usually overfill the fries anyway. But I love fountain diet soda. I enjoy diet more than regular soda. And to me, it's like the perfect pairing. So I get like a diet soda and that. Now people would be like, well, what's the point of the diet soda? Like you're already eating up. Well, the point is like it would be an extra 400 calories if I didn't. So I am saving myself some calories. Like it's still a dog shit day anyway you slice it because I'm eating 140 grams of fat that day. But you're minimizing some level, but you're taking some. So I do understand the idea of like, if I'm going to eat like shit, I might as well not drink like shit too. Or if I'm going to drink a lot, maybe I don't eat like shit. So it's like you push and pull somewhere. Something has to give. It's, this week I wasn't really able to be attentive to my training. So maybe I upped up my intention with eating, or I couldn't really eat well this week because I wasn't planned for it. So maybe I put more stock into the movement bucket. So there's always going to be a little bit of an ebb and flow. So I do want to make that distinction because I think it's important for people to know that don't let all the wheels of the car fall off at the same time. Like if one's popped, cool, let's deal with it. Let's not pop the rest of the other ones. Yeah,
I think that's incredibly fair. One thing that I would say, even just to qualify a little bit, is you said that you prefer the diet soda from the fountain more than the regular soda. And
I do, yeah.
And so you're not making an enjoyment sacrifice for that thing. You're actually choosing the thing that you enjoy more. It just so happens to also be less calories. The thing that I think I was getting at, and maybe to clarify, is like if you're drinking the vodka soda because it's lower calorie, not because it's the thing that you want, and you actually would prefer to be drinking something else. And that pizza, it's been sitting outside for 2.5 hours. It's not good anymore. But so like you're wasting your calories, if you're being conscious of it, on that shitty pizza and drinking the drink that you don't even want to be drinking just to save calories. That's where I think like some of the disconnect is in making decisions that are not, it's not even for enjoyment. It's just to try and save, some calories, but you're also not really doing this in the best way possible. Nothing wrong with drinking vodka soda. Do your thing if you like it. But if you like it, if not, you're not really moving it. If you're not drinking all the time and you're drinking once every, a couple months, whatever, do your thing, enjoy it, and then move on.
I drink vodka soda because I can drink 40 of them.
Right. And that's a good reason to drink vodka sodas.
Because if I drank 40 margaritas, I would be drinking 6 times the amount of calories. And by the way, for anybody who still believes that there's such thing as 0-calorie liquor or booze or drinks, There is no such thing as 0 calorie. The second it's an alcoholically filled beverage, somehow there's already calories in it because alcohol itself is caloric. So whether you're taking shots of grain alcohol straight out of the bottle or you're mixing it with pineapple juice, obviously the vehicle in which it's mixed is going to make it more calorically relevant. But alcohol itself is 7 calories per gram, give or take. So there is alcohol calories. So just understand that, folks, for anybody who's listening who still believes that, like, well, vodka soda is healthier than beer. It's like, it depends. Like, what's the dose? Are you having 1 beer and 6 vodka sodas? Or are you having, you know what I mean? Like, or are you just having seltzer water that has no alcohol in it whatsoever? So just understand that the devil's in the dose.
I also think about that there's, and maybe it's because we speak online and so we're a little bit more aware of specific language that we use and how the message comes across through coaching and stuff like that. But I'm a little bit of a stickler for when people say things like, well, the vodka soda is healthier than the beer. I'm like, well, neither of them are healthy. So let's establish that. Like, maybe the correct term is like the vodka soda is less bad than the beer. And I think that the mindset shift that like that has in our brain, because words mean, like, they mean things to us, obviously, and they have like certain, emotional responses and the way that we perceive them internally. And so when you're making a decision thinking that it's a healthier decision, well, it's not a healthier decision. It's still an unhealthy. The healthy decision would be to drink water and stay home. The less bad decision is to choose the vodka soda instead of the beer, assuming that like amounts are equated, right? So I think the framing of it also matters in like just your intention with it. Are you trying to have fun or are you trying to be healthy? Because if you're trying to be healthy, you shouldn't be drinking.
Right. The intention to me is everything. Like I am, and I think anybody that's self-aware and emotionally intelligent can justify about anything.
Yep.
Like the amount of justification I can give you for doing drugs and drinking is immensely huge. Like that list is massive. And I've practiced that script a number of times. But I also know that it's not coming with any consequence of health whatsoever. Like, and health is very relative person to person. It lives on a spectrum, just like fitness lives on a spectrum. So these terms that people throw around interchangeably, or stuff like "I love you," or you know what I mean. Like we've taken some very grave words with some serious implications to them, and we've kind of dumbed them down to not mean anything anymore. As opposed to being able to paint with context and actually explain. Like, I don't know, did you see the quiz I posted on Instagram the other day?
Exercise angles and like, which exercise is best for biceps certain muscles? Yeah. Yeah.
So like the one and I had this conversation with my coach afterwards because it's always fun for me to have these little conversations and discourse. So one of the questions was, which movement biases the glutes more? It was a hack squat, a dumbbell RDL, or a Smith machine squat. Now, if I had the ability to write all of the context in the question box that I should have or could have, it would have been a lot more elaborate of a question frame than that. But my intention is for purely glute hypertrophy, meaning the growth of your butt muscles, what is the best possible exercise out of these three? Most people, like 400 and change people, chose RDL versus the squat, and then hack squat to me is a knee dominant movement. I'm sorry. So the RDL is not a bad exercise to have some glute activation, but it's primarily more of a hamstring lengthening exercise. That's what it is. You're basically controlling an eccentric on the way down and the glutes contract on the concentric on the way up. So what are you going to get more of a bang for your buck for? Probably squats, because squats are going to control you on the way down, stretch at the bottom, and then push you out of the bottom on the way up, especially if you're trying to keep a vertical shin and keep weight in your heels.
And especially on the Smith machine where you can stand a little bit further forward than you would on a regular squat, right?
Exactly. So biomechanics and intention matter. So you can have the argument in that case where, oh, you're an asshole, you're wrong, RDLs are better. And this is what like some very unnamed, very similar looking to me gentlemen on Instagram love to argue about. You know who I'm talking about. And it's usually about lats.
Took me a second there, but yep.
He just made a post the other day about touching your lats and you don't have to do it.
I just unfollowed him because I couldn't stand it. He's a smart guy, but like just so much negativity. I couldn't.
There's a lot of it. I can cut through it at this point because I personally know a lot of people who know him and they're just like, he has a lot of good intentions.
Yeah.
He just comes off like the biggest prick on the planet, which is fine. Like for me, it doesn't matter. I don't have to emotionally attach myself to his content. I just find it to be an easy way to explain shit to people sometimes.
Yep.
So something like that, like the nuance, while it doesn't apply to most people, it's still important to kind of understand, because if you do understand that depth, it might make you connect to the things that you're doing better. So the intention might start to become more clear, more crisp, and that focus will start to create a much better actionable plan, which will probably result in a better result.
I completely agree. I think even with teaching beginners this, who beginning is any exercise, who are not, like specifically focusing on hypertrophy and trying to get as big as possible, they're just trying to get healthy and learn how to move and whatever in the gym. By telling them what muscle that you should be feeling in this exercise, it helps them understand what they should be doing with their body, because they have such a disconnect between their brain and what their body is doing. Like a easy example, I had a buddy I was training like a while ago, and we were doing lunges, and he's like, listen, I see what you're doing and I understand it, but my body, it's not working. And so we had to like break it down into like smaller parts and like figure it out, right? And that's not his fault, it just didn't work. But it did eventually. So like understanding that like, hey, this is what this exercise is for, allows you to be like, okay, I know where my butt is. I can try and squeeze that muscle and think about that when I'm doing the Smith machine squat or an RDL or whatever. And sometimes this is that coaching aspect where you might even say the biomechanically incorrect thing because it's going to be a cue to get that person to do what you want them to do, which would be to do the exercise correctly. Or it's like a coaching thing. I think Ben Bruno said this once. He's like, if he's doing tricep pushdowns with a female and they ask what it's for, and they're very focused on glute development, he'll just tell them it's for their glutes because that's going to get them to do the exercise, right? Like that's a bit of an extreme, silly example, but the point stands, right? So understanding what muscles are being worked by certain exercises is important. And this is again a conversation we were having pre-recording, where it's like the switching of exercises or the swapping of exercises requires a little bit of understanding on the individual, which is you listening, to know what's going on. So if there's a lat pull down and the lat pull down machine is busy, broken, inaccessible, whatever, well, how do you train that instead? Do you go and do squats? Is that the same thing? Well, that's not true, and that's probably an easy one to figure out, right? But to say like, oh, I'm completely lost, I don't know what that does or what that muscle is, you've got to be able to figure that out. Having a coach, obviously we can help you, but we're not there all of the time. What is some of the way then that you try and go about like explaining this to people and understanding like, okay, the lat pull down machine is not available. How do we also think about training the lats or training the back, even if you want to just make it that general?
I spent some time a couple months ago building out like a training cheat sheet, which basically just includes like body parts, biomechanics, joint angles, push-pull, explaining which exercises correspond to which movement. So I hand that out to every one of my clients when they start. Do any of them read it? Clearly by the answers that I'm getting, probably not. So that's one thing. The other part is I do a lot of these Zoom calls, and then my question to everybody that's doing anything when they send me a video form check review or somebody online asks me to look at something, I always ask, what are you trying to achieve with this move? So like a guy literally a couple of minutes ago sent me so the other day I had posted a quick little sped up video of different handles on the seated row and what they're going to provoke different feelings of. And he had put the D-loop handles on the straight bar and was doing rows with it. But as he was doing them, he was flaring his elbows out and a little bit higher up towards the shoulders. First question was, is your intention mid-back or is it lats? I don't know what his response was. I haven't looked yet, but let's say it was lats. Well, yeah, good setup, but shit execution. We don't want elbows high on a lat focus pull down. We want probably a little bit of turn underhand, right? Supination, and then tighter elbows to the body, and then pulling down towards the floor, towards the bottom of your belly versus pulling up into your chest. Those little distinctions, while they might not mean enough for somebody, when they feel the difference, it's like, holy shit, yes, that makes sense to me now. So it's explaining to them what's supposed to happen and then what theoretically should be the sensation. And then when it's practiced and applied, when that sensation is arrived at, then they understand, cool, that makes sense to me, I get it. But giving them at least that baseline level of education of telling them the difference between hand angles, overhand hands probably means elbows wider, neutral grip hands, palms facing each other, or underhand hands, elbows tight to the body, is going to provoke different muscle groups. Same thing with lower body training. If your shin is relatively vertical and over your knees, and your weight is in your heels, you're probably going to feel a little bit more glute stuff during lower body movements. And if your knees are traveling towards your toes and more of your weight's in your midfoot or your front foot, you'll probably feel more quads. And just those little tiny things, when they start to feel those sensations, there's light bulb moments, and now you're starting to become really dialed into training. And now you're not just exercising anymore. You truly have graduated to training.
Yeah. And I think this is, to be fair, this is not easy to come by. I wouldn't expect someone on day one in the gym to be able to feel the difference between, neutral grip, supinated grip, pronated grip, mid back. They're like, I'm just trying to work out. I don't know what any of the muscles are. I'm just trying to move around. I think the thing to think about for someone who's a little bit more on the beginner side or even intermediate side and not sure is the differences matter, but not so much unless you're really advanced and really trying to only specifically target one thing. If the lat pull down machine, if you can't figure out the neutral grip, don't just not do the exercise. Just do a different grip, and it's not the end of the world. It's a slightly different thing, but it's still okay. There are very few bad exercises. There's just different exercises for different things. The RDL is except not a bad
except for weighted side bends.
That is one of them. I didn't say zero bad exercises. There's just very few. I saw this guy and his girlfriend at the gym the other day. They did about 700 weighted side bends, and it took everything in me not to go up and say something because I couldn't understand what they were doing. It was like a circuit thing of they would do one exercise and then a set of weighted side bends and then another exercise and then weighted side. And it was just in between everything.
It burns off the fat on your obliques, Daniel. Didn't you know that?
Yeah, I guess not. I don't know. They were pretty lean, so it must be working, right? That's how it works, I think. But
that drives me crazy. That's something that people really need to understand. Just because a lean muscular person is doing a movement that looks really effective doesn't mean that's the thing that got them to that level of athleticism or leanness or whatever.
Yeah.
People really need to start understanding that, because I think any idiot with a decently muscular body, whether male or female, could post a video of themselves doing something, and it could be completely butchered and incorrect, but because they look a certain way, there is immediately a level of buy-in that thing works. So somebody who's super jacked doing a side bend and their abs look like they're flexing during it, oh, that must burn off fat on my stomach. So if I do these, that's what it's going to do. No, the fuck it won't. It's just going to probably make you look like SpongeBob, because at some point when you build up your obliques thick enough, they're going to get big and your torso will get wider.
Yeah.
So if that's not what you want, then stop doing fucking weighted side bends.
Yeah. Just because something appears to be happening doesn't mean it's actually happening. Once you get a decent level of muscular control and understanding of your body, I can do bicep curls and flex my abs too at the same time. And if I do it with my shirt off and I'm lean enough, I could fool enough people into thinking that that's the way to get abs. But obviously that's not the way to do it, right? There's definitely something to be said about walking the walk, and you can't be 400 pounds and be teaching people how to get lean. I think that's a big disconnect. I don't think you need to be, dick skin shredded and all this stuff to teach people how to lose weight, but you have to at least look like, you know what you're talking about. But that's a really interesting point, because people see people in the gym who are not trainers, just other people working out, and be like, oh, that guy looks good. I'll just copy his workout. And it's well, you have no idea what the context of that guy's, what he's doing. He also may have zero idea what he's doing, and he's just been doing the same workout for the past 8 years because that's the thing that he read on bodybuilding.com 8 years ago. And, he's just, decent genetics, doesn't eat that much, kind of lean, kind of strong, and, it seems to work for him. But I think it's a hard trap not to fall in for a lot of people, because, again, we know this stuff, but how would someone know?
Yeah, and I don't blame people for it, but I think, people also need to shed their reliance of rigidity.
Mm-hmm.
I like giving people programs, but then it's whether it's a program or a meal plan or a meal structure or portion size recommendations or exercise recommendations, just understand that everything is just a template and a guardrail for you to be able to keep some semblance of order and control.
Yeah.
But also understand that it doesn't need to be that specific or precise unless you're a competitor of some kind. Then there's precision that matters, at which point we're dialing in every variable perfectly. And if you deviate from those variables, you probably won't be the best possible athlete.
Yeah.
But for everybody else outside of that population, if I give you a rep range of 6 to 15, just live within that rep range to the best of your logic. So that means that if it's above 15, it's probably too light. If it's below 6, it's probably too heavy.
Agreed.
It's about as good as we can. if you live in that rep range forever, you'll probably still be fine. You're going to be training with high enough frequency of higher reps and lower reps. Try to go up in weight per set. Try to give yourself some time in between. Know that if that machine is taken, that something else might be able to evoke the same response. If you understand some of these little things, then you're not like overwhelmed, and then you're not frustrated or disappointed because you weren't able to execute that thing in that linear, perfect fashion that it was given to you in. So there has to be some level of critical thinking learned and adapted to this stuff, because without it, you're going to have to either rely on somebody else for the rest of your life, or you're not really paying attention to your own participation in your change.
Yeah. You have to become at least somewhat autonomous in this, because you're not going to have a coach forever. And even if you did, they just can't do everything for you. Like, I think a paradox of this, and a lot of fitness coaches will fall into this trap, is like, I don't prescribe meal plans because, that's too rigid and you're not going to follow it. But then we'll go ahead and prescribe like an exact workout program. And it's like, sure, we've got to give that structure, but like they should also know that, like, hey, if you can't do the pull downs with the neutral grip, just do it with a different grip. Like, that's okay. You're not gonna lose all your gains because you didn't do it with with the right handle that day, or you did 8 reps instead of 9 reps, and like, all of a sudden, like, you're not strong anymore, and your body's gonna fall apart. So it's like, we've got to. I think coaches, we also have to. It's our responsibility to let people know, like, hey, you can be flexible with this, and like, here are the parameters. Like, this is what I want you to do in a perfect world. Here are the parameters in which you're still like making the same choice and doing the same stuff, and then anything outside of that is like, well, now you're it's probably better than sitting on the couch and eating chips, but you're not doing the thing that we kind of talked about, right? But yeah, but again, people have to notice this on their own and be like, okay, what questions do I even have to ask, and how do I go about doing this? If my coach wasn't there, what would I do? And then figure that out.
I like that. The idea of what would I do if I didn't have a coach, or what would I do if somebody asked me? You there, Dan? Yeah,
we lost connection for a second. I have no idea. Fuck, I can't believe this happened twice in like 3 weeks now. That is unbelievable.
That's all right.
I'm going to say, based on the last time this happened, that it saved and it just kicked me out of the studio. Like, I didn't lose internet connection. That's very weird.
Mine kept saying recording and kept saying uploading. So I was just talking to myself.
Yeah, no, that's okay too. Let's finish that last thought. I completely forget what we were just talking about, even though that was only like a 10-second delay, but finish up whatever that last thought was, and then maybe let's wrap this up just in case we lose the rest of this. But I think the rest of it will be okay.
Yeah, I mean, the last thought I would give is just that message of autonomy and that message of self-involvement in your own progress and in your own change. Like, if you hire a trainer or a coach, anybody that's listening to this that's either on the cusp of wanting formal help or feels like they can still do it themselves, and fine. Just always be a curious sponge for information. That doesn't mean go to every single resource that exists and start just to consume broad level content, but at least try to find people that seem like they know what they're talking about. I mean, I think you and I both do a good job of highlighting other people's accounts. I have an entire highlight thing in my stories of people that you should go follow because I think they're good at what they do. So as long as you have like 10 or not even 5 or 10 accounts that you enjoy learning from, you start to apply those principles, but also be curious about the whys behind why these things are being said. And if you have to ask questions, so be it. That's why our DMs are open. And if you have a coach or a trainer, especially, don't just go into a personal training session and just go through the motions. Like, you should be asking questions in between sets. And if you have a trainer who's not letting you rest in between sets, fire that trainer and find a new one, because that's fucking stupid. Yes, that's stupid. It's stupid. It's stupid. It's stupid. I'm sorry. I'm going to say it 1,000 times. You should be taking at least 1.5 to 2 minutes in between sets if your goal is physique change, which I think most people are going to the gym so that they look better. That's why people start. If you're trying to be a better athlete, different context, you probably don't need as much rest in between sets because you're trying to perform for sport. But if you're not asking, if the trainer A is not lending information in between sets or explaining to you why things are happening or why things should be happening, then you have a shitty trainer. Or you have a trainer that doesn't really know how to train. Because there's a difference between trainer and coach. And Kevin, God, I always forget his fucking last name. But he hosted the St. Louis Summit that I went to. Kevin Deneen. He had posted a thing about what is the difference between a trainer and a coach. And then Jason Brown actually did the same thing. I said a trainer is somebody who executes things, who has a plan in his head on a clipboard and then just makes people do things. And a coach is a strategist. It's somebody who looks at the macro level, at the 30,000 foot view, and then knows how to laser focus down into that 1,000 foot view. So take advantage of the knowledge base that you're paying for. And if you don't learn anything out of that experience with that person for the period of time that you're working with them, it's either that they didn't lend you that information or that you just didn't give a shit enough to ask or care. So it's either their responsibility or your responsibility. But at some point, it's probably both. Like I know with my coaching, there's never going to be an opportunity that I'm not taking to teach somebody something. So if you work with me specifically and you're not learning something, it's because you're not caring enough to learn. But I know plenty of other coaches online who don't teach shit and they just execute and they just give people plans and they're just, okay, cool. Like good luck and send me your check-in on Sunday. I'll get back to you in a couple of weeks.
Yeah.
So if that's the kind of coaching that's okay for you because you need it to be more hands off or it's more on your price point, awesome. But if you really truly want to learn, so at some point you don't need a coach and you just maybe have there's nothing wrong with having a coach for accountability. That's what I do. I hired my coach purely for accountability, not because I needed to learn anything, but because I wanted somebody to answer to. Because I know it keeps me on point. Mm-hmm. There's just understand your intention behind the need for a coach.
Well said. I mean, there's this kind of coming full circle. Like, there's not a lack of knowledge in the world out there, right? So if you're just looking for a workout program, a nutrition protocol, like just Google it. You don't need a coach for that. If you want someone to teach you how to apply those things to your own life and how to navigate the individual differences that you will experience as a unique individual, then that's where a coach is going to come in and teach you how to do it on your own. Like it's kind of a happy day when a client is like, hey, I think I'm good. I don't think I really need you that much anymore. I'm like that. I know that you're kind of being really nice about saying that, but that's a good thing. This is this is what we wanted. I don't want you to need me for forever. We can still be friends. Just because you're not paying me to be your coach anymore doesn't mean I'm not going to answer your messages. We can still, talk and whatever, but I don't want you to need me for forever. If that's the case, then I'm just not doing my job.
Yeah, I just had a person had 6 months. He signed up. I had ran a special, buy 1 month of coaching, get one free. He was one of the first people to sign up. I had him for 6 months on the dot. Lost 11 pounds. Didn't really have a ton of weight to lose, but just recomped beautifully. Did it 95% adherent for 6 months straight. Guy's actually a U.S. Marshal here in the United States. He's an awesome dude. Family, two kids, travels for work, but made it happen. And he's like, hey man, we're done. And I'm like, hey, well, you have the option for group. You have the option for extended one-on-one, whatever you want to do. Or you can just go off on your own. I think you have all the skill sets you need. If you need a couple of pointers when you try to attempt your next cut, just let me know. I'll obviously monitor it for you. But I don't want people to have to cling to me forever and if you do that, it's almost like you're setting them up for failure down the line because you just want to keep making money off of them. The best business to me is referral business.
Right.
You got results. You were happy with your experience. You told 50 people about me and I got 2 more clients out of it.
Right.
I want that. Give me that person because if you leave me and you're worse off than you got to me, at some point down the line, I didn't do something and I'm going to be personally responsible for that. And that sucks. It's a shitty feeling. And that happens plenty. You don't get a lot of the guys that I just had or the girls that I just had who hey, I'm comfortable going off on my own. I appreciate everything you did for me. At some point down the line, when I want to do something more specific, you're going to be my first call. That's perfect. That's exactly how I want to coach. Exactly.
Yeah. Well said and very much agreed. I'm getting a little bit more lag on my end, so let's wrap this up. I hope that this whole thing saved. If you're hearing this, then obviously it did. If not, then I don't know. We'll figure it out. Aram, do you want to let everyone know where they can follow you? Anything else you got coming up? I know you just finalized the lineup for Real Coaches Summit next year. You want to rattle that off for everyone?
Yeah. So next year's Real Coaches Summit, March 11th and 12th in Vegas. 14 presenters. There are 14 of them. I can rattle them off, or you can just go to the website. It's realcoachessummit2023.com. I know it still says 2023. That's how domain names work. I can't change it now. So it will live. It was my fucking mistake. It'll live forever as 2023, but the lineup and the page will be different for every year. So that lineup is on there. You can still buy recordings from last year for $98, which is a steal. I'm mostly on Instagram at 4 Weeks to the Beach, at 4 Weeks to the Beach. The number's 4 and 2. So if you ever have questions, you need DMs answered or questions answered, I will always answer my DMs. If you're a coach or a lay person, the conference is not a bad idea because it does have a lot of technical information that's very applicable. And I choose my presenters very carefully based on their ability to to deliver that information in a tactical way. So it's not like a conference solely for coaches because there's all this business heavy stuff. Like there's those types of conferences as well. I'm going to have a little bit of business, but because there's going to be 2 separate rooms, you can choose what you go and see. So you don't have to go to the business ones if you don't want to. And the nice thing about it is you're getting all meals catered to you, and you're doing we're going to do at least 2 happy hours once a night. So there's plenty of people you can really collaborate with and connect with that are coaches or not even coaches, because last year there were some lay people there too. So I'm excited about that, and hopefully people are excited about that as well.
Yeah, absolutely. I am for sure. Everybody make sure that you are following around 4 weeks to the beach on Instagram, and check out the Real Coaches Summit. I'll put the links in the show notes to make it easy for you. Aram, any last message you want to leave the people with here in closing? Have
a happy Canada Day and have a happy 4th of July, and just make sure it's limited to one day.
That's it. Well said. 4 weeks to the beach. Aram Grigorian, everybody. Give the episode a share, like, subscribe, rating, review. All the platforms does a really good job of getting this episode out there and getting the message to more people. At Daniel Yoris on Instagram as well. If you're not following me, and that's that. Go outside. Be a good person. See you soon.